Tai laba diena visiems, esu Justinas Taruška, vienas iš Sales Club bendruomenės įkūrėjų. Šiandien mes turime pardavimų formuliai svečią poną Christianą, kuris anksčiau užėmė įvairias pareigas Lego kompanijoje. Bus anglų kalba interview, so I'm switching to English. So Christian, thanks for coming here to Lithuania. It was also a good honor for us to have you here at this conference and that you share your experience. At this community we have interview with the speakers, and we would like to ask to share your experience to our people. So I will start from the first question from your presentation. Before that, Lego had wooden toys, and you had an accident, fire, and it was like in the way that you switched them to the plastic ones. So can you explain all the transformation when you started to sell plastic toys, and what was the biggest issue selling these new products?
The Lego's change from wood to plastic came already in the just after Second World War. So when the fire came, they were both a plastic and a wooden toy company. So in terms of selling new things, I mean, I don't know how it was because it's long before my time, but I've tried so many other things in my life where you work with new things, and I still think that what is most important to retailers, I think, are willing to try new things. They also, if there's something new and exciting, they also want to try it, but ultimately both the retailer and the brand owner or manufacturer have to think through what I call the value proposition to the end user. Ultimately, what a retailer does is he puts it on the shelf. Then the consumer has to take it away. And that situation should not come as a surprise. And the manufacturer has the obligation to test whether it'll work before he sells it in. He has to be sure that when the consumer passes by the shelf, will the consumer understand what it is? Will the consumer feel attracted by it? And will the consumer ultimately wish to buy it for whatever the price is? That should not be an experiment. That experiment should already have been done before it's in the market. I wouldn't argue that Lego did that very well in the early days, but they had a pretty experimental nature, so it would be like them. When we became a bigger company and I came in, and of course it became a bit more professional, not because of me only, but because of the times, then of course Lego wouldn't launch things without having them tested first. And when we spoke with retailers, we always knew they would think about 3 or 4 things. They would think about their margin divided by the shelf space. They would think about their margin divided by the labor cost, and they would think about their margin divided by the working capital. And then as a 4th thing, they would think about their own positioning as a retailer. So they would think about Lego as a brand. Is it the right brand to have in my store? And that is still like this today. And still we see companies who launch product without having an idea of whether the consumer will take it or whether the retailer will make money on it.
And talking about sales, when Lego is Danish company from Denmark, and you had to go to US as a company and to present that you are from Europe, from Denmark, not so big country, and start all the operations there and sales, what was the key success for that?
US is a difficult market for, I know it also from my board and consulting work, for many Danish industries have had all kinds of struggles in marketing to the US or starting up in the US. And let me just see if I can pinpoint some of the major obstacles and issues. One certainly is the sheer size of the country. It's 50 odd number of states where each state is at the size of Denmark, if not bigger. I mean, Texas is many times bigger. And the retail structure in the United States, now I'm speaking about a product that ends up in retail. You may be a B2B company in another way where your products do not end up in retail, but sooner or later they have to be sold to somebody else than the guy or company that imports them. And that in the United States tend to have national structures at retail. So if you go on with a national chain, you have to support the sales through that chain in maybe 50 states. And it takes a huge budget to do that. So it can be very tough. It can be very tough if you don't have the money. You'll have to start by making a loss. You'll have to agree with yourself that if you want to support a national distribution with national advertising and national promotion, your first year will look terrible. If not, your first 3 or 4 years will look terrible. So if you cannot sustain that in your capital structure, in your courage, in your strategic plan, you'll have to think about the following question: how can I start in a smaller scale in the United States? And that is sometimes possible. You may pick up a customer who only covers 4 states, and then you may say, that's it. And it comes back to a very important point in market choice strategy. A market is not interesting just because it is big, because the size of a market just happens through accumulation. I mean, if you included North America with South America, it would be an even bigger market. Does it make it nicer? No, it's still a lot of trouble. It's still a lot of countries. It's still a lot of diversity. So size is nothing. What really counts if you want to pursue a market is the return on your efforts. Will it come back to you with the money you put into it? Will it respond positively to what you are and what you can perform to them? But in Lego's case, it was tough. It took many years before we were really profitable in the United States. They had started long before I arrived. Was also involved in it when I was there. And I know of many other companies who have had, to whom it has taken a long time to make it work right in the United States.
So in other words, for smaller companies, not for the national, not for the global companies, if you are approaching big market, then it means you maybe have to take a piece of it to find the right partner who has right distribution channels, and then going step by step.
Yeah. Or you can find a partner who is capitally strong, then he would want to have the rights to sell it in the entire country or things like that. That can also be the case. Then you're just not so much in control anymore. That can also be a case.
How you are defining your partners, distribution partners, who represent your company, or like Lego or others companies, maybe some advices for other exporters. What are the key parameters which you would like to mention? Is it big? Is the sales channel?
You have this classical distribution issue when you enter a new market. You could go there yourself with your own branch. You can set up a legal entity. You can choose a distributor who buys your product and sells it on, so he brings his capital risk into it. Or you can have an agent who just represents you, open doors, and then it's your work for the rest of it. And I think there's no correct and incorrect answer to that question. It depends on what the long-term perspective is. In the case of Lego, they always believed that one day this will be big. And if you have that belief, you have to think about structures that can move you in that direction. So even if Lego started up with a licensing production, which is a completely other thing, they worked together with Samsonite because Samsonite was a plastic manufacturer. The thing is that pretty early on, Lego built their own sales company and later on their own manufacturing company. And they did it because they truly believed that the future will be strong for Lego in the United States. So if you believe in a strong future, you risk more. If you just marginally shop for yet another market, you can have an agent, and sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not, because the agent, when you speak to him, he would say, I love your product, I'm very interested. The day he's on the road, he has 5 other brands in the trunk. and you don't really know which of them that gets attention.
So thank you so much for this interview. I hope you enjoyed Lithuania.
I certainly do. I like this country.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.